In the 1940s, America needed a hero. It found one in its sweethearts, the pinup girls, who became symbols of the nation. And few were more famous than Candy Jones, a statuesque beauty, a patriot, and a successful businesswoman who built her own empire of modeling schools. She was the all-American dream, but a hidden part of her life was an American nightmare. She was one of America's most famous faces, but according to hundreds of hours of secret audio recordings, she was also an unwitting CIA courier, programmed with a ruthless alter ego who carried out secret missions and endured brutal torture, an identity her conscious mind knew nothing about. This story begins in 1972, when Candy married her second husband, the famous late-night radio host Long John Nebel. He was a master of the strange and unexplained, but the strangest story he would ever encounter was sleeping right next to him. To treat Candy's severe insomnia, Nebel began using amateur hypnosis. As he recorded the sessions, something terrifying happened. A new voice emerged from his wife. It was deep, grating, and hostile. It called itself Arlene. Over hundreds of hours, Arlene told a story of shocking government conspiracy. But was it true? To understand what happened to Candy Jones, we need to explore three distinct possibilities. Was she a victim, the star of an elaborate hoax, or a patient suffering from profound trauma? To believe Arlene's story, you first have to understand that its foundation is terrifyingly real. In 1953, the CIA launched Project MKUltra, an illegal program of human experimentation. Declassified documents confirm its goal: to research mind control and create hypnotically controlled Manchurian candidate couriers, agents who would have complete amnesia of their missions. According to the story Arlene told, Candy's involvement began in 1960. Financially vulnerable after a divorce, she was approached by a man she knew from her World War II USO tours, a doctor with the alias Gilbert Jensen. He was now a key figure in the CIA's mind control program. Jensen saw Candy as the perfect subject. She was patriotic, traveled internationally for her business, and was highly susceptible to hypnosis. He didn't need to create a new personality. He just had to weaponize a broken piece of her past. As a child, Candy had an imaginary friend named Arlene to cope with abuse. Jensen allegedly used drugs and hypnosis to isolate and cultivate this latent personality into a ruthless operative. While the Candy persona ran her modeling schools, the Arlene personality was dispatched on secret missions. She was given a passport in the name of Arlene Grant, complete with a photo of Candy in a dark wig and heavy makeup, a photo Candy had no memory of ever taking. The story includes harrowing accounts of torture to test the programming. In the most disturbing claim, Jensen allegedly demonstrated his success to CIA officials by placing a lit candle inside her vagina. The Arlene personality registered no pain, proving the program's total control. Candy's mind and body were no longer her own. It's a perfect, terrifying story, maybe too perfect, because the entire narrative comes from a triumvirate of deeply unreliable storytellers. First, there's the man who discovered it all, Long John Nebel. He wasn't a journalist. He was a radio provocateur. His own biographer called him a magnificent charlatan who built his career on paranormal hoaxes and conspiracy theories. He once convinced his audience that cigarette lighter wicks were a crop grown only in Wisconsin. Was his wife's story just his greatest on-air prank? Then there's the author who wrote the book, Donald Bain. He wasn't just a chronicler. He was a known fabricator. Bain was the ghostwriter behind the racy, best-selling memoir Coffee, Tea, or Me, which he later admitted was an almost entirely fictional story he invented. The timing is also incredibly convenient. The story is discovered in 1973, the same year the CIA director ordered the destruction of most MKUltra files, and the book is published in 1976, just 1 year after the U.S. Senate's Church Committee exposed the MKUltra program to a shocked public, making the topic a guaranteed bestseller. And here's the biggest problem. Despite the book's incredible detail, MKUltra expert John Marks scoured the 20,000 pages of surviving CIA files. He found no mention of Candy Jones, Gilbert Jensen, or Arlene Grant. After his exhaustive search, he concluded the whole thing was, in his words, bullshit. But what if it wasn't a CIA plot or a simple hoax, but something far more personal and tragic? The key may lie in Candy's real, documented childhood. She suffered severe physical and emotional abuse from her parents, who beat her and locked her in dark rooms for hours. It was during this time that a young Jessica Wilcox, Candy's birth name, created an imaginary friend to endure the trauma. Her name was Arlene. This is a classic pathway for the development of what is now known as dissociative identity disorder, or DID. In this theory, Arlene was a genuine alter personality, but one created to survive abuse, not by the CIA. The elaborate MKUltra narrative, then, is likely a confabulation, a false memory. Candy was a highly suggestible subject. Under hypnosis by her conspiracy-obsessed husband, she could have unconsciously merged her real trauma and the reality of her alter ego with the themes of espionage and mind control he discussed every night on the radio. The process of hypnosis itself is now known to be an unreliable way to retrieve facts and can easily create vivid, detailed, but entirely false memory. So who was Candy Jones? A mind-controlled victim of a real government program? The centerpiece of an elaborate media hoax conceived by her charlatan husband? Or a deeply traumatized patient whose genuine suffering was repackaged into a sensational conspiracy? Perhaps the most compelling explanation is a hybrid of all three, that Jones's very real trauma and dissociative state were observed by Nebel and Bain, who then deliberately shaped that reality into a best-selling story, using the recently revealed facts of MKUltra as their framework. Decades later, the case remains defined by its unanswered questions. What is truly on the hundreds of hours of hypnosis tapes? And why have they never been released? What was the real story behind the Arlene Grant passport? A genuine CIA document? Or a clever prop? And finally, the Hollywood question. In the late 70s, 20th Century Fox bought the film rights with superstar Jane Fonda slated to star. The movie was never made. Was it pressure from intelligence agencies, or was the story simply too unprovable to ever be told? The tapes are gone, the key players are dead, and the truth remains buried. We're left with a tangled web of government crimes, personal trauma, and possible fabrication, leaving us to wonder where Candy Jones's story truly ends and where the conspiracy begins.